Good morning. You are watching Beyond Headlines on Freedom Square TV. And of course, we are reaching you from our Enugu studios. Of course, Enugu is the southeast part of Nigeria. My name is Uche Nasrellanioke, and I'm your host. Education is the backbone of development. And in Enugu State, Governor Peter Mbah's administration has been working to transform learning through the Smart Green Schools initiative. The governor's recent address underscored his government's commitment to building schools that are not only technologically driven, but also environmentally sustainable. But beyond the beautiful speeches and architectural designs, critical questions remain. How transformative are these smart green schools in reality? Are they adequately addressing the long-standing challenges of Nigeria's public education? Overcrowded classrooms, teacher shortages, low literacy rates, and lack of digital literacy. What are the prospects, risks, and sustainability plans behind this transition? And perhaps most importantly, how does this policy fit into the broader socio-economic vision of Enugu State, and indeed the Southeast Nigeria? To help us make sense out of all these questions, and of course, have a discussion into the policy direction, I'm being joined this morning by a seasoned analyst. He's a researcher. He's a commentator on public affairs. He's actually the chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. He is Ambrose Igboke, PhD. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, Chief. It's good to be here. We are looking green and smart.
You're looking green and smart. Okay. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Whether it is here or in any other platform, because definitely we know you're a man of intellect.
Thank you very much.
Yesterday morning, 7 a.m., His Excellency the Governor of Enugu State, Peter Mbah, addressed in Enugu. That address centered on a bold initiative, a transformation from the old model school system to the Smart Green Schools initiative. And of course, that address was received with mixed feelings. Some believe it was a beautifully written and properly delivered address. But the naysayers believe that beyond the rhetoric, that it just mere platitudes. There is more, that it has little or no substance. And so the conversation in Enugu now, and actually in Nigeria, is about the governor's address. As a public affairs analyst, I'm sure you watched the address. I'm sure you've read the context of the address. What's your take, the general overview of that governor's address yesterday morning?
As a man of letters myself, and who also have a very rich literary background, and sometimes in my own speeches I also do poetic symbolisms. First thing that came to my mind when I listened to the speech, when he was talking, was that the governor's speechwriter, I give it to him. It's a very good one.
Yes, I did so.
The way the transitions, the way the nuances, even poetic resonate, the person is good. Whoever is writing that speech, I doff my heart for the person. Because when you see one good thing, you really love it. So kudos to the speechwriter, to the governor. Then I also want to praise the speech in terms of his content. Trying to link, it was laced with, it was not an abstract speech. It was very personal.
You can feel it.
You could feel it. You could know that the man was talking about himself. The man was trying to, do a connect between himself and maybe what he went through in his childhood, between what the children are going through now. And there was a place he asked the question where he was saying that, in the streets of Port Harcourt, he grew up in poor, and then through grits, and he was able to be where he is today. But then he asked one question, must every child go through that to attain success?
For me, it
was so touching for me to ask that question. Must every child go through that? No, every child must not go through. And he was saying, and he also said that it's a personal project for him because maybe also tying it to what he went through in his childhood and the rest. And so basically I read the speech. And then the initiative itself, I have always argued right from time when people were arguing about the smart school initiative. First of all, United Nations through UNESCO and UNICEF have always argued that nations should spare up to like I think 25% of their total budget for education, even beyond defense. Okay, a lot of I think the highest Nigeria have reached was 12 during Goodluck Jonathan's time. I think that was the highest we reached, and most states dwell on pay little attention in their budget to. It is one of the smallest percentages in most states, but in Enugu. During under Governor Peter Mbah, I think the successful budgets he incubated, I think they had the highest share. So now the people have been asking, what do they do with it? First of all, I always say it. I love people with guts. I love people with bold ideas, and I love people who take initiatives. So that's why sometimes when I talk about him, there's a little bit of bias always towards because first of all, I admire people who have guts, who are bold, who take disruptive, stance, who go against the current and see what they can achieve. So as a man, I respect every man or every person that has that kind of, attitude. But when it comes to the school initiative, at least we have had interfaces to government officials, be it the commissioners, be it teachers, be it even those who run the school boards, be it the teachers and the villages. I've had interactions with different villages. I travel a lot around. I've had interactions with parents. There's always this fear that when government promises, they don't keep to it. That is always the fear. That fear of past failures and all those things still haunt our people to today. And so sometimes when government promise, even when they will deliver, the people still have doubts because you can't blame them. They are coming from a background of failed promises, and so they always take everything with a pinch of salt. But when it comes to this, one thing with physical projects is that you can easily access it as well, because they are there for you to see. So physical infrastructure are there. It is human capital infrastructure that you don't see because you are training people, you are changing mindsets, you are doing transformative things about changing people. It's more difficult. But when it comes to things like smart school, it's a physical structure, first of all, in the schools being built. Then it's a technological structure with the equipment being installed. There is also the human factor also comes in. That one you don't see. The aspect of human capital development. From the explanations the government has given of Enugu State, why, first of all, they want to do it. The explanation has always been that, okay, the school system we had, 634 system of education, is obsolete and doesn't solve the current realities of the global needs in education. So even our university system is still tilted towards, when the white men were living, the colonialists, they taught us to do classics and then with some courses that are more clerical in nature. So to service the public civil service and the rest. That has changed over the years. So what we have now is countries all over the world are changed to skill-solving curriculum. We have not had that yet. So I think the governor of Enugu State also feels strongly that we can align with the global standards and try to now, look at skill-solving curriculum for our children, because according to him, that they are going to compete globally. They are not going to compete around themselves only, as from Ojiriba to Betiti or from Soka to Aneri. No, they are going to compete with children. After all, you can see a lot of children from Nigeria competing with Japanese children, doing international science competitions and the rest, and they're coming up top. So that is the new competition. It was not the competitions those days when you were maybe in a secondary school or somewhere, and then you go and play football match with CIC Enugu, and then they go and play with St. Teresa's and Soka. Those times have gone. Now a child can see they have competition with a child in New York, and they are competing in the same global space. And that is what the explanation the government has given all this time, that this is what they are looking at. And if that is the overall goal, then there must be some kind of commendation given to the government to first of all have that bold vision, ability to start it, to kickstart it, then ability to try to see it through. Because also we talked about the trainings for teachers, which they said they have done, how to handle it. So it also remains that we need to go back to see those things, because there was a tour we did at the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts that we saw those equipment and all those. Now, I think we also need to go back to check how it's being applied by the students and who is teaching them, because machines themselves cannot operate themselves. Even the AIs of this will have to be activated by a human element, and that is what it is. But overall, it's a good initiative, it's a good development for the state, and it should be supported. And also, government should also listen to the feedbacks. It's very, very critical that government listen to the feedbacks, take from the feedbacks and correct whatever. Because also, I like the point where the governor said in the speech that they are not claiming perfection.
Yeah.
I think that should be clear. So that brings it to the bed that the governor doesn't think that he knows all, or that they are okay with what they are doing. They also, from that line of speech, they have acknowledged that they have made mistakes, that there were errors that have taken place in the course of implementing. And that's why he said in his speech that they don't claim any perfection, but that what they promise is resolve. Yeah. So that part of that resolve should also be to take back the feedback and try to improve on what has been done already.
Okay, Steve, a few things the governor said that really about education. For instance, he said education was I'm quoting him, he said education was my inheritance, the one possession that could not be taken away. Then he went further to say, I've always believed quality education is not just a private benefit, but a public right. I'm sure, for me personally, these particular sentences made an impact. Did you feel what I felt?
I need to see that speech right again. I need to see if I give you a handshake. No, these are, and if it is governor that wrote it for himself, then sometimes when he talks, I was like, okay, anyway, he's a lawyer, so it should flow,
Yes.
But again, he's right. Because my friends did 30th anniversary, 25th anniversary of their graduation from Command Secondary School at Abakaliki. I think some years back, like 4 years ago or so. They invited me. They hosted it in Ike. Yeah. And so I went. You know what I saw? I saw, those days, children of the rich. I think there was a 30th or something. Children of the rich were going to school with the children of the poor. Because that time, government schools were still the best. So even as a rich man, you don't take your child to a private school because it's substandard. The government schools were the best. So it was mixed together. So it was a public interest. It's not a private enterprise. But now, government across the country has, absconded that responsibility and, given it to the private sector to run. And so it became a private enterprise. So for Enugu State to now take the initiative to now make it that, look, it should be of public interest. The best schools in Enugu should not be private schools. There should be government schools. So if the state gets it right, and if there's sustainability at the end of the day, for the quality to be delivered, and you will find that in Enugu State there will be a revolution. People will start withdrawing their children from private schools to public, because in advanced countries, private schools don't thrive per se. It's public schools. Most people go to public schools. And because the public schools have better people, just like what is happening now to most of our tertiary health institutions, where you have all the professionals there. And people, when push comes to shove in terms of some things, you will see them going to refer to the tertiary institutions, teaching hospitals, and some tertiary institutions owned by the government, or trying to get doctors or professionals from there to come and attend to them. So our education can be like that. But that part of the speech touched me in a way that, to say that truly we need a kind of paradigm shift to say education should be a public trust and not be left as an entrepreneurial or a capitalist venture, because not everybody can. Because when you go around, I live in GRA. When you go around GRA, how many primary schools there belong to government? When you go to Enugu as a whole, in the urban areas everywhere in Nigeria, how many public schools do we have? When you check the number, the ratio is so far apart. because government has abdicated its responsibility of schooling. With this now, you can see that it will change.
There are some parts of that speech that I've read over and over and over and over. And I'd like to share part of it with you and maybe hear your own thoughts. Peter Mbah said in that speech that smart grade schools are not just an investment in classrooms, but in the soul of our people. Then he went further to explain. He said each of the 206 schools is designed as a complete ecosystem for learning. And he says, what does this say? He said, that means smart means integrating technology, critical thinking, and problem solving into every subject. He went further to explain, not just their build, what they should look like. So each has about 25 digitally connected modern classrooms. Maybe a proposal. We need to see whether it is actually in those schools. ICT centers, robotics and AI labs, e-libraries, and spaces for experiential learning. And they are inclusive. Every child is provided with free uniforms. I'm imagining the number of pupils in the whole of Enugu State. Books, meals, and tablets. Each school has its own medical clinic, reliable water systems, and community halls that anchor the school in village life. Housing for teachers is on site, so that the best educators live within the communities they serve, ensuring continuity of care and commitment. One of us, an analyst, said, yes, fantastic speech. He now added, is it doable? Is it on ground? From what you know?
Well, from what I know, when we had the tour, we saw, that was 3 months ago, it's a long time, that was 3 months ago. A lot would have happened. When we went to the technical college, we also saw a lot of equipment on ground. And then we also, when we talked about uniforms, my mind went straight to the sewing fashion garment workshop in the training college, in the Tibet, college.
Yes.
And they were like, okay, these children can even make their own school uniforms. From what we saw there, if they get the proper training, they can start sewing their own uniforms. And we'll talk about the tablets, remember? And they said they're going to also do tablets for the students. That way, they're supposed to also be kind of interactive. I think one of the things that is the problem here is that a lot of people still judge education by what exists here. Interactive board, some of this is the governor talking about that looks isn't doable. It's actually what is taken for granted in many private schools, especially when you go to cities like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, all those things. Those things are there. Interactive boards is what teachers used to teach in many private, from primary, secondary, even nursery schools. So when the governor said he wants to do it here in Enugu, it's not as if it is rocket science. So it's something that has been there. They just want to bring the good things that are out there and embed it here also, so that our children can, now start matching up with those skills that people in Abuja and all those things have. When you watch social media, you see a lot of videos showing, especially Chinese children, at that tender age, deconstructing so many equipment, so many methods. They start giving them as toys to dismantle. By the time they are 5 years, 6 years, you see them doing mechanical works, mechatronics. 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds are wearing overall. I watch a lot of these videos. So, and that is what the governor is saying that he wants to also bring down here. Like you say, a child of 6, come down home and you are struggling with something. He looks at it and he says, Daddy, we need to, tell you about what technical thing. And they start, there was one woman like that things were happening and it was shouting. And then the child was just, 8-year-old just come. I said, Mom, I think I know the problem. He just did that, he fixed it. And the one did like this, because the kind of skills these children are learning now. So it is doable. If you ask me whether it's doable. It's doable if the right processes are put in place. And then I also think that when the governors, if they start well and do well, they can now start attracting international funding. There are some people that, it's their work. UNICEF can partner with them. UNESCO can partner with them. A lot of developmental agencies all over the world. Actually, these are kind of things they're also looking at. They can partner with a lot of these things. So they could be able. We are still having our children do exchange, collaborations with schools overseas. For example, they can build robotics together. They can build robots together. They can do a lot of AI exchanges with children outside the continent, and they can achieve a lot. So these things are available. So as you said, if we have this kind of thing we saw at GTC TVET, the solar kind of input they have there, alternative energy. Now that means if they have it in all the smart schools, that's why we say we also need to go to see what they have, so that we can validate some of these claims. If they have that, then we can now see, okay, good. Electricity, because that's one of the biggest problems. We cannot have a smart school without constant electricity. So the problem of electricity is taken care of. It's the problem of water supply. So again, we need to find out, do all those schools have boreholes that will give them continuous access to pipe-borne water? That's a question also to be asked. We don't have enough storage facilities to anchor the problem, because in Enugu State, water is a huge issue because of the topography. That it's not a place you can just dig borehole, and then sometimes most of the time you need coal, not water. And then also the issues of I know the government have been training the teachers a lot, but again they need training, retraining, catching up, because some of these teachers are not young. And then I think also there are recruitment of new teachers. So this training technology is one of my friends that work in the ICT department of the bank. Training is like almost every week.
Yeah.
Because there are new things that come up in technology and you have to upgrade. So the teachers need to be upgraded every time so that they can work. And then these children that are going to go to some of these primary schools are no more Gen Zs, they're Gen Alphas. They are more curious than even the Gen Zs. So we need teachers that will not be intimidated by the sheer brilliance, because these children, when they handle those equipment, give them 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, they are very familiar with it. And when if the teacher is still struggling, then you cannot catch up with them. And then the next thing will be intimidation. The teachers will start shouting. So we need also to have this comparative advantage in training so that they can have good training. It's doable. Everything the mind conceives can be done.
Everything the mind conceives can be done. Try to conclude that speech. He made a plea, or was actually an injunction to the Enugu. And he said, protect these schools as if they were your own children. Protect schools as if they were your own children. So these schools are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring world-class education home to Enugu. So cherish them, defend them, guard them as a community. Give our young people the time and space to grow, to discover, to become. Instill in them the importance of the work we do within these walls. Take shared responsibility for our future, which is walking in on 2 small feet every time a child enters these gates. He said, support the teachers, the custodians and guardians of our future farmers, entrepreneurs, nurses, artists, engineers, lawyers, and leaders. It's like a direct plea, a direct injunction to the communities where these schools are cited. But again, some of the schools are cited in dual communities. How could this injunction, this plea, be turned into reality?
Fortunately for me, I worked in a World Bank assisted project where we had a lot of community engagements. One of the things you do is continuous community engagements. The governor has made a charge to the community. Remember those days, the days of the 40s, 50s, and where actually communities come together to, provide funds to give scholarship to their own sons and daughters to go study. Where the churches built schools before they built churches. So on Saturdays and Sundays, it is a church. So on the blackboard, you put a white cloth and turns an altar and set a table. And then by Monday, it turns to school. Why am I saying that? Was the importance of community participation and ownership of the school system. That has to come back. But over the years, we lost that. So, so that the communities, in one of the years, communities have seen government things as their own. It's government now, it's not us. Because also government has created that kind of wrong perception, wrong optics that says, oh, look at them, they're anything, they don't throw things at the people as if they don't exist, you know. Now, if that narrative has to change, the governor has given a charge on the speech. Now, there have to be a conscious effort to go round, not from the top down basics. You got to do it bottom up, okay? We need to engage the traditional rulers. You need to engage the religious institutions. You need to engage the youth organizations. You need to engage the women. You need to engage everybody now from the grassroots level. So first of all, tell them the direction the government is going about these things. Because this TV broadcast was done, a lot of people don't even have DSTV subscription, so they don't even know what you're talking about. And many people don't know, and that is why programs like this are also good to amplify some of those things. But beyond the speeches, the pragmatic way is to now start every local government chairman, every traditional ruler needs to be abreast of this. It needs to be re-indoctrinated with this mantra so that they can't be the one pushing it for their people. They can set up a kind of a committee. We call it O&M, Operations and Maintenance. Okay? This one now is that the government is operating it. That the maintenance. So the people, how do the people join? The government has to now articulate to the people how they can be part of the preservation of this legacy. They have to be known that it's a legacy. They have to know that it's for them. It is not for Peter Mbah. The smart school is not for Peter Mbah. The smart school, and also they should also be careful to also that the naysayers, there are a lot of naysayers who want to tell community people that it's for them everything is political, so they interpret everything through political lens. So they will call it, the smart school is for Peter Mbah. It's not our party that did it. It's not. We just want to deceive you people. The community people should not listen to those kind of languages. They should listen to the fact that so far it's located in your ward, it's for you. Nobody's coming to uproot it and carry it on his head and take it somewhere else. It's a legacy that you need to protect. So beyond political affiliations, beyond the party alliances or loyalty and whatever, everybody should see that school as their own and engage it. So there's a lot of work to do from what the governor said. If the communities must own it, then the orientation agencies, the Ministry of Information, the local government channel, the church, all these people should engage the church groups, engage everybody from the lowest level, and then tell them, draw up responsibilities for each person and in the ward to be able to, like when you said you have two communities, only one, you can have a O&M committee of both sides, maybe where the Igbo's or both communities or whatever can change.
Without meaning to interrupt you, part of the concerns of these communities, when you had alluded to the fact that when communities planned and built schools, they owned it.
Yes.
It meant that decision taking, they were part of decision taking. Many complain that, well, they just saw a site being developed. They were not consulted. They didn't know. They just said, it's a good thing the schools are coming. But they were not part of the decision making, even in where the schools are sited. And so, if you have 3 communities, only for instance, one smart school, how would the other 2 communities, sited in one community, how would the other 2 communities that are about 3 kilometers away from that school own it?
I think one of the problems is that the representatives of communities of ward, because these things are cited in wards, each ward has a councillor, and 1 or 2 wards or 3 or whatever the wards come together to have a House of Assembly member. Now, what are those House of Assembly members doing? What are those councillors doing? Because at the government level, you may not be able to meet everybody, okay? Although politicians do it when it's time for elections. they go to meet everybody. But again, 3 communities have a representative in the House of Assembly. How far has the House of Assembly member been able to engage with those 3 communities on behalf of it? Also, the state government, how far have been, engage the House of Assembly member that he needs to take this message down? So if there are these issues that a lot of communities have, some communities are complaining that they were not, I don't think also that should be the excuse not to engage this time. So if the government want to now maybe do a kind of enhanced interface with the communities, I think the government now has to put everybody in check. For example, the House of Assembly member who is representing these people need to be on ground. It's not too only to say I and the eyes have it or nay. No, that's not your work. Is also this kind of engagement. There is also another level. Is also whether the House of Assembly member was also there was an interface with the president. So if there's no interface, that one means that there needs to be more than further engagement if there has to be a sustained legacy, and if the exhortation of the governor has to be pragmatic, then we need to, the government needs to look at engaging the grassroots, talking to them now, having town hall meetings, engaging with them directly now from the federal, just the way they were going to look at this, not sending people that come and speak English and go. People that these people engage them and then hand over. In fact, there can be a cycle of O&M as the operation after maintenance that will be overseeing what people are doing there, so that the community can have a kind of channel of feedback directly to some people, maybe the commissioner or at the state level, to see, oh, these things you're not running well. Also for security reasons, because if you're going to put digital equipment in these schools, they need to be protected. Who is the best protection apart from the community? They are the best protection. So there's a lot to be done. Security also there has to be a very purpose-fit community policing for these smart schools, so that they can, be, kept, sustained, and they'll be beneficial according to what they need it to be.
Okay, many people talk about funding. The worry about the ability of government to continue to fund all the free textbook, free everything, free meal and all that. But beyond that, they also talk about rural adoption. And the argument is that, or they ask actually, how feasible is it to introduce AI-driven and ICT-based learning in villages, where, as you and I are aware, internet and power supply are unstable?
Because a lot of people in the villages depend on GSM access to internet. But again, you can find out that there are satellite technologies now that don't depend on GSM access. Because why you're saying this, most people say these things, that most of our villages depend on the conventional GSM operators to have access to the internet. Now, because of technology, even this one, Elon Musk just launched recently, and there are direct satellite technologies that access the internet directly. So if the government deploy that, there will not be any problem. Then secondly, when you watch on CNN or BBC, sometimes they project, there's African Voices and some other people, you see projects people are doing in interior villages in different parts of the country and different parts of the continent, where there's no internet, actually. But there's what we also call digital skills. Digital skills can also be taught without the internet. You can have digital skills. Like if you want to teach a child to operate a computer, how to do graphics design and those things, at that elementary basic level, the child can still learn it without the internet. But the internet is not so dependent on, and I don't think a government that's setting up smart schools will depend on GSM access to internet. I don't think that is correct. If it is, then they need to enhance that capacity. Then also, history has shown that a lot of people who are even in the villages who have no access to civilization, and when this civilization is introduced to them, these technologies, a lot of children, because they are smart kids, actually, naturally, innately smart, but they don't just have the opportunity. When you give them the opportunity, a lot of them grab it. And we have produced all over the world, especially India. India has showed it. India, for them to have this technology revolution, almost all the ICT companies in the world are run by Indians. And Indians were poorer than Nigerians. It was this ICT skill that leapfrogged India from their poverty. How did they do it? They went to the villages, introduced technology, ICT to children that didn't have clothes, naked children. And that is how they got it. So if India can get it right, why can't we get it right? We can.
Okay, I like your optimism. Even India can get it right, why can't we get it right? You mentioned teachers who will be the drivers of this innovation. Government said they've trained. Yeah. But placement of teachers is a big, big issue. Before, not all wards had schools. Now everyone has a smart school. And I do not know whether the number of teachers that will be in each smart school. Do you think honestly that in the rural communities, they'll be able to find enough teachers? People are worried about that. And even before now, you go to some schools, you find one teacher teaching 1,000 subjects alone. You go to some primary school, you find only 4 teachers doing all that. And what is being introduced, all this scientific learning, do you think rural communities will not be isolated somehow going forward?
Why do rural communities lack teachers? But I believe I do a lot of root cause analysis. Why? In the first place, there are no welfare packages there. You transfer somebody to the village, he has no house to stay. There are no comfortable house to stay. There's no pipe and water. You expect the teacher to fetch water from the stream? So the first thing is to tackle those problems.
Are they tackled now?
That's the point, because when we went to, that's why I want to find out. I've not gone around all the spots.
Yeah, those in the communities.
The Tibet, for example, we saw here, the Tibet has staff quarters where the staff will stay. Okay? Now, if you build a comfortable residence, just like what I did, I take the type 2 hospitals, so they try to do residence for doctors and nurses. Do that for teachers. Now, if you have,
that's about 1 or 2 teachers, you have about 15, 20
yeah,
teachers.
It can be done. I tell you that anything a man conceive, it can be done. What does it take? These are mass housing. You do terrace and then divide it to flats. It's not rocket science. Give them food. In fact, you see teachers lobbying to go back to the village. Because the teacher that lives in Abakwa or in Transekulu or in Emene, do you know how much they pay for house rent? And we are providing free accommodation for the teacher and the family. They will be applying to be relocated. So it is the incentive, the welfare package, the living condition you give to your staff that enables the staff to want to be there. So it is not a problem if the provisions are there. But where we have a problem is where you transfer somebody to teach in a village and there's nothing there. So if the government can start looking at that, because there will be smart homes for the teachers, as there are smart schools for the pupils. So if you have smart homes, you have smart teachers, you have smart schools, and then you have smart outcomes and outputs.
Okay, I think Dr. Igboke, we need to take a short break. With this, your hopeful introduction of smart homes for teachers, the smart school, then the smart students, and of course, a smart environment, a smart community. That's a good point to go on a short break based on theirs. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
Looking for comfort, luxury, and style? Welcome home to House 32 Apartment. At House 32, you're not just booking a room, you're stepping into executive elegance. We have a 2-bedroom luxury suite, complimentary breakfast, continental and African dishes, laundry, handled, spa, 24/7, security, covered, free Wi-Fi, of course. So whether you're planning a business trip or a peaceful getaway, House 32 Apartment is your home away from home. We are located at number 32 Ogidi Street, Enugu. Call now to book or email house32enugustate@gmail.com. House 32 Apartment. Live different, stay better.
You are still watching Beyond the Headlines on Freedom Square TV, and my guest is still Ambrose Igboke, PhD, who is still the chairman. He has not been impeached. He's still the chairman of the Polygraph Analysts of Nigeria. Doc, before we went on that short break, we were talking about the issue of teachers. And many argue, rightly or wrongly, that where would Enugu State government get all the teachers needed to teach the smart schools? The certain issues of schools in communities where you go to school, you have just 4 teachers. So where do you get, how can, it's not longer where can they employ more teachers, get them trained, to ensure that they're effective teaching and learning in these smart schools?
Why do people migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas? To seek for better opportunities for themselves, to have better income, to live a more qualitative life. That is why people live. So teachers to live. So there are no scarcity of teachers. There are not just enough incentive to attract the teachers to stay back in the rural areas. Let's look around Enugu, okay? We have a federal, it's not a university, I think, a Federal University of Education in Hamilton. I think it's a university now.
I'm not sure which one it is.
Okay. So now we have education institution in Hamilton that churn out hundreds of graduates in education, different disciplines in education every year. We have ESSET,
Yeah, College of Education
College of Education Technical. We have private colleges of education, like up to 5 or 6 of them. Every university, we are talking about almost 20 universities in Enugu State, have departments of education. In fact, some have faculties of education that now have different departments. So the departments, so these schools in Enugu, I can say that if I do wild guess that we are turning out by more than 3,000 to 4,000 graduates of education every year from amalgamating all the schools. So where do those teachers go? Where they graduate, where they're certified, where they have their NCE or where they have their BEd? Because now there are 2 exams where they call the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, TRCN, and they are certified teachers. So where do they go to? So most of them are migrate. I know a couple of people who have migrated, youngsters who have graduated like 3-4 years ago. I want them to stay in anywhere, or migrate to Lagos, migrate to Port Harcourt, Abuja. And that's why they have quality teachers over there more than we are. So the urban-rural migration has not been bridged. So why teachers are difficult, why you have 3 or 4 teachers? There are no incentives in the villages. I'm sorry, there are no. And it's not something alone with Enugu. It's always across the country. So being a disruptive government, we need to disrupt that pattern in Enugu State. It needs to be disrupted so that teachers, in fact, so that teachers can be begging to be relocated to, in fact, when you do it well, let's say you have their welfare well. For example, if you say anybody who is teaching in rural villages, you mark out some places are rural villages, the person will receive the incentive at the end of the month, maybe 10% or 20% extra of your salary as an incentive to governments all over the world do it. And so these things we are talking about, it's not novel. It takes government to make sure to upscale the balancing. And then you're going to say, okay, because it is difficult, you don't have enough flats there, your living condition is not too proper the way you want to enjoy it in town. Somebody said that they're in Band E, that somebody gets like 2 hours of power supply. Hello. Why, when you're in Band E, you get like 18 hours? So who pays for those inconveniences? Of course, somebody has to foot the bill, and the only person that can foot that bill is government. So when you give them extra incentive to say, for example, in fact, in places like US and other countries, they give them tax rebate. To go to some places that is difficult, you need to be sanctified. They call it sanctified. You need to get sanctified. Then, welfare of them. For example, the issue of housing. Housing is one of the biggest problems that teachers have when you transfer that. Give them that, because education has to be a priority above every other thing else. It's education, is health. So those 2 things first are what makes a progressive society. Because when you get your education right, when you get your health right, you can get every other thing right. So the priority must also be that part of the thing, as the governor said, it's not about blocks. It's about building a culture of excellence in the education system. And when you do this, then all the students graduating from Ehamufu, graduating from SC Technical here, graduating from all the university UNN, the schools, college, departments of education, faculties of education, can now stay behind in Enugu and work in the rural areas. If you give them this enough, I mean, a young person who just graduates, young, and you give him free house, he has internet, he can access internet with his mobile. You have given him small additional incentive of like maybe 10% extra from the salary and everything. The person will beg you, I mean, transfer me to that village somewhere, so that every weekend after closing from school in the afternoon, if he wants to be young as he is, he can take a cruise down to Enugu, enjoy himself because I've incentivized him, and then by Sunday evening he goes back, and then he can go back to Sunday. In the morning, for those who like flexing, and let me use their own language now. For those who like enjoying themselves, then there's some. They may just even stay for 2 weeks, 1 month. They can come back to town, stay the weekend. So people can live, but it's just that there's not enough incentive. What there's enough, I used to tell somebody when those days I used to live in Enugu, as if they discover here, well, in my father's backyard, I will locate to the village.
You do like this of that case.
I will go and tap the oil there, because after all, what brought me to Lagos, I was in search of money. And then the money is my father's backyard. What are you telling me? I will turn it to Lagos, So those are the things we need to do as government. If you do that, people will stay back.
Okay, perhaps let's sound a little bit political. There must be every program a government does there must be a political dimension, and that speaks to what happens at the end of the governor's tenure, whether it's 4 years or 8 years, and that speaks about continuity. How do you think this project can be sustained beyond the full tenure of the governor, maybe say 6 years from now?
One of the things, just what we finished discussing, build the critical infrastructure that will ensure sustainability. One, the physical infrastructure is being built. Two, the technological infrastructure is being built. Three, you have to look into the welfare infrastructure, especially housing for the teachers. Four, you need to look at welfare packages also in terms of incentive to retain people in the rural areas. Okay, when you have achieved all this, you now need to pass laws and legislations to protect these processes, so that it will not be easy for somebody to just give executive order. Because if you don't, the process of changing the laws are more Herculean than something that is not under laws. Something not under law, the government can just be directive, just a single directive, and it is gone. So, but when you put it under laws, then the processes, even though a lot of House of Assemblies in the country today are just, mere rubber stamps. But the process is still there. You need to raise the bill. You need to be debated. People from different communities. So it's more cumbersome. A lot of people don't want to go through that process. So put the necessary laws to put this thing in place. Then the dilapidated institutions, after facing the smart schools and achieving the physical infrastructure we have, then you can also see how to upgrade the other existing schools to make the smart schools. Because one of the problems the government said they're having is that the structure of curriculum is very different. Now those ones are 6 years, the old ones, okay? You still the old 6334, they call it. So you end it. So you don't do JS1 or 2, you don't run it. So by the time you are coming out and you are moving to the technical vocational education training colleges, you would have, chosen the path. You want to go through the technical path, or you want to go through the normal school path where you do the social sciences, arts, and humanities. If you want to go to technical, you go to technical. So these things are what is here. And one of the things we do, as analysts, we always interact with the people, also get what the people say. We have access to the government people. We talk to them. Also see what the people are saying. We also get explanation. When we went through some of these things to the government people, the explanation they gave to us was that they have to start this because trying to change those curriculum will be more difficult. So it's good to do these ones. When you finish, you can now go back to revamping what you had after you have migrated people to this new one. And then, okay, so nice explanations, nice ideas. But again, what we are now saying is that to ensure sustainability, you need to create all the critical infrastructure together.
You see, we have visited some of the smart schools, and many people worry about security of the kids, the pupils when they start. Some are actually well situated in the heart of communities. Some a little bit distant from the communities. What would be your advice to government on how to ensure maximum security in the smart schools?
Well, the security are really in two areas: security of the pupils, as you have said, and then the security of the equipment and the building itself. Because if you have a building and the smart school that you have put all kinds of technological equipment, you need to protect it, because those things, technological equipment and accessories are easy to pilfer. Some of those things are going to be tablets, some of those things are going to be pads, internet pads. Some of those things are going to be computers and other kind of robotics equipment. So those things can easily be pilfered. So there have to be security for the equipment. There have to be security for the buildings, because some of the buildings can be cannibalized if you don't, have a good security for it. Then the children. I'm looking at it more from a macro security outlook. Because if you secure the society, the children are free to move anywhere they want to go. They are free to go to the stream to fetch water. They are free to go to the farms. They are free to go to schools. They are free to go to playgrounds. But if the macro security of the community is not there, then they are not free to go anywhere. So for me, we should the security will be ramped up. Should be ramped up around the forest guard. Good, even the federal government is, including forest guards. The state security also, they are doing their own community policing, and so those things can be enhanced, so that anybody going anywhere, it's not just for the school children alone. Anybody going around as a citizen should feel safe to go around, and when that is there, then you have no fear that the children will have issues with. For those that are far, I think there should be access roads built for them, so that even those who are, they know that there can be transportation. If it's too far, some of them, these tricycles. It could be even a new business for a lot of tricycle people, so that they can take the children back. While I was growing up in Wara, I trekked 5 kilometers to school.
That was
my secondary school. When I was in my primary school, Rumono Primary School, from where I stay, I passed in the middle of rubber plantation to school.
But the level of security we have now.
Yes, so
that's not a child will trek for that one.
Those days there used to be, because I remember when we were growing up,
you're looking for the child
in Yoruba land, there used to be this thing they call Bomo. Bomo means child kidnappers. But that the entire Bomo is there. That means we are talking about more than 40 years ago. So what we are saying is that it has always been there. It's not that it's even amplified because of technology. So when a person is kidnapped in Boronu, you hear it in seconds here. But that time it happens in Oji River, you won't hear it for months. You may not even hear it at all. So I usually do those kind of arguments that it's because of technology that drives news faster now. You think these things are worse. It was not, because we had these child kidnappers right from time, ritualists right from time. Growing up as a child, we always want not to enter vehicles we don't know, strangers we don't know. The one that don't know whether it's happening, the way you pick money, turn to snake. I don't know whether that's what is happening now. But again, have good microsecurity for the community, the children will be safe.
Okay. Beyond basic education, which is what this school will provide, do you see the policy creating ripple effects? Perhaps in terms of youth employment, innovation, and maybe economic diversification for Enugu?
Yes, I see that happening. I think that's not even the essence of it. It's not even whether it will happen. The essence of government has said combining theory and practice has now, because what we have left before, we have left practice. I remember that one of the reasons why government created polytechnics those days was monotechnics, was to enhance the capacity for practice, practicals. But now we don't have that anymore. So we have polytechnics doing business administration and accountancy and all those things. They don't have business with those things when it was created initially. But because we didn't, what would we practice with? There were no equipment. Look at our GTC, Government Technical College. Look at the one in Soccer 2. In Enugu. All of them, at a point, there was no. But when somebody graduated from Government Technical Colleges in the 80s, in the 70s, the person is like a qualified engineer.
Yeah.
He can do anything. And so that is, if those things come back through these smart schools and technical colleges, Then you can have people who will just from SS1 say, oh, look, I want to be a furniture maker. Look, I want to create robotics. There are so many problems in our society today because of the developing economy where simple robotics can solve. The man in the UK doesn't have that kind of problem, so he's not thinking about it. Okay? We can start now copying things that people that look like us, these villages in China or India, where drones, we are talking about condition of living, where drones are now going to deliver drugs to local remote villages that don't have roads. Most of these communities we have been talking about, they have roads. Most of them vehicles can enter or motorcycle can still go. This or nothing can go, cut off with mountains or valleys and whatever. Drones go there to deliver drugs. Our children can manufacture drones. Our children can manufacture simple tools that can help in farming, in doing a lot of things. Everything we import toothpick for this country, for Christ's sake. We import tissue papers. We have gone bonkers in Nigeria. So these things can be done here. So when you make our children look at all these what do they call screen guards you use on phone, small plastic something, we bring them from China. So that is the anomaly here. So, but when you have smart children who can develop these things, you have a problem with your stitch. You do it. You have this thing. There's a gate inscribed. Somebody can weld it. And that is what, because of this kind of technical training that I have overseas, that's why people do what we call DIYs everywhere. Do it yourself. So everybody has tools in their house, and you start doing those things. And then you even look at what's happening: screeding, masonry work everywhere, tilings and paintings and all those things. People from Benin Republic, Togo, and Ghana that are coming here to do it for us, and our youth are wasting without jobs. So with this kind of thing, we expect that in the next few years, we'll start seeing results. And our people, they will gain more employment, there will be multiplier effect, people will become more reliable and financially more reliable and self-sufficient. People will become entrepreneurs very early, and they teach more people. And then people can be globally competitive.
People can be globally competitive, and that's a very point of finality. But before I let you go, I want you to provide, well, if you have the opportunity, to provide an advice to the Governor of Enugu State Chapter Mbah on the smart green schools, on how to make it functional, sustainable, and people driven. What would be your advice to him?
I don't advise people. I don't give you recommendations. So
what would be your recommendation?
So if to recommend to the governor, he has started well. As he said in his speech, he doesn't claim perfection. So there are still areas for improvement, and I'm sure he's going to work on it. And I like the line he said, we don't claim perfection, but resolve. So the resolution should be one, to look at the areas where there have been issues and try to work on them. There have been a lot of issues coming up of contractors abandoning their sites, of those who have not been able to comply. One of them is dancing hot to EFCC right now because of that kind of behavior. There may be more. So we want to see those actions taken so that those schools can be quickly completed. And secondly, I want to look at issues of teachers' incentives. Let them have more incentives so that those smart schools in the village can have teachers. Then 3, the issues of retraining and retraining. Some of these teachers that have been introduced basic training, but then now there needs to be enhanced capacity because these children are smart children. They will learn faster than the teachers. So the teachers need to be game up ahead of them through retraining. Then there will also be incentive for teachers in terms of welfare package, in terms of housing. Then the third one is, the next one is also that there should be proper community engagement for the where the smart schools are, situated, so that the people can own the smart schools and they can protect them, and then can even defend it with their blood. Then there should be feedback mechanism from the community back to the government. There should be a channel of feedback so that whatever they see is not only through the eye or the mouth of officers that government get feedback, but it's also through the eye of the people. Then finally, to ensure that this legacy is sustainable, there should be legislations to protect all aspects of it. And also government should put up a vast network in multilateral agencies to see that in the next 5 years, the majority of the funding from the smart school will come from donor agencies and multilateral agencies.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ambrose Igboke, for the conversations. It's been quite enriching, and I'm sure that those who are watching us would have learned one or two things on how to ensure that the Enugu smart green schools are operational. What did I learn personally from this conversation is that the smart green schools are not just about buildings with gadgets. Anybody can do that, but about reimagining the future of the education in Enugu State. Whether this vision succeeds will depend, actually, to a large extent, on governance, funding, like you said, teacher training and retraining, and the will of the people to embrace change, and the will of the people to do what? To protect what is in their domain. Well, this has been Beyond Headlines of Freedom Square TV, and this is where we call it a day. Join us same time tomorrow. But remember, this conversation is on. So you can do that on our Facebook or YouTube handles at Freedom Square TV. Thank you for being a part of today's conversation. And remain blessed.